Hello, I'm Beth. Thank you for joining me for this mindfulness-based meditation. So I've adapted this meditation from a book I recently finished reading. It's called The Book of Joy. I have it right here, and I will link down below. So this book was written by Archbishop Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama. These two men came together in 2015 for a series of discussions around the topic of joy. And based on this, they came up with what they call the 8 pillars of joy, 8 different factors that are really important to the idea of joy. At the end of the book, where they offer joy practices, they use these 8 pillars to provide a practice that they call the joy meditation. And that's what we're going to look at today, is a version of the joy meditation. I love how this is described in the book. It says the joy meditation is to smooth the ride on the bumpy road of life. So I think we can all relate to that idea of wanting to smooth out those bumps. They're always going to be there, but wanting our ride to be a little bit more at ease. So as always, begin by finding a comfortable seat. You can be lying for this meditation as well, as long as you can be alert and stay awake during the meditation. So as you take your seat, you can let your eyes softly cast down, or you can close your eyes. That option is completely up to you. As we go through these 8 pillars, what we're going to do is call to mind something that's troubling you lately, a problem, a source of pain or suffering in your life. So we use the 8 pillars to work around that issue. So take a moment and call that to mind. Maybe starting with something that's relatively small, not starting with your biggest life problem. When we try a new practice, it's often useful and helpful to start where it's a little bit easier so we can learn new skills. All right, once you have that problem called to mind, the first thing we're going to do is look at the first pillar, which is perspective. So perspective is the idea of widening our lens, taking it from looking at a very focused way to our problem to a bigger picture. And you might think of it as a literal picture or moving picture. Imagine your problem as if you're watching a movie of yourself. And you could even describe yourself in the movie. Beth said this, and then she did this. Giving you that little bit more of an observer perspective. You might also take the perspective of time, thinking about yourself and how you might view the same problem a year from now, 10 years from now. So this is different than comparison. It's more a using your own guide as perspective. And then we'll shift to humility. And you'll notice I'm going through these one by one. You can always pause if there's a particular tenet, a particular one of these pillars that is more useful to you. So for humility, the first thing that the Archbishop and the Dalai Lama both talk about frequently is we are in a world of 7 billion people. Thinking about that thing that's so humbling when you think about that grand perspective and where does your problem fit in this lens of so many people in the world. You might also think of others who share that problem with you. Humility can also involve that wider perspective of how does your problem fit in the scope of the world, the universe. Feeling a sense of awesomeness of things bigger than you and your issue, your concern. Moving on to the third pillar, that is humor. Both Archbishop Tutu and the Dalai Lama are delightfully humorous men. If you know either of their backstories, they have both experienced much tragedy in their lives. And yet they look through what's happened to them with the ability to giggle, to chuckle at themselves. So as serious as your problem might be, is there some small aspect of it that you can laugh about? Sometimes we think of the idea of laughing through our tears. It doesn't invalidate your sadness or the difficulty. Again, it allows you a little bit of a different perspective, a little bit of a different way of approaching the situation. The fourth pillar is acceptance. So sometimes people confuse acceptance with liking something. It's not liking it at all. It's simply accepting or acknowledging the reality of the situation. This happened. You absolutely can say that you don't like it. We can't do anything to address or change until we acknowledge or accept that this is what it is right now. We acknowledge or accept the reality that painful things do happen in life. Life is very imperfect, and we cannot, even through our best efforts, avoid problems, avoid difficulties. The next step is forgiveness. And I shouldn't say step because these are not steps. These are different ways of approaching the issue. And again, you can just take one. You don't have to go through all 8 of the pillars. So the next pillar, forgiveness. If you'd like to practice forgiveness or try to cultivate more forgiveness, place one hand over your heart. Use the compassion you have for yourself to offer forgiveness toward yourself. Even if you acted unskillfully, if there are things that you feel that you did wrong, how can you allow some forgiveness for yourself as a human? All humans make mistakes. All of us are fallible. Can you also extend that forgiveness to any others? Allowing for the imperfection of others. We can't control when others make choices that may be less skillful. Know that others are limited. And see if you can extend some sense of forgiveness to that. The next pillar is gratitude. So much research has proven that gratitude is an extremely important component of happiness, of joy. Even in the midst of your problem, your difficult situation, can you find some gratitude? Who's supported you as you've dealt with this? Who's been there for you? What small good things have come out of it? Something you didn't expect, some small benefits. How have you grown as the result of this experience? So see if you could identify just 2 or 3 things or people that you are grateful for even during this difficulty. And then the next to last one is compassion. Compassion has also been shown to have so many benefits, to be one of the greatest components of our joy and our happiness. So first, compassion for self, and we always start with self. Allow yourself to feel for your own suffering, to feel the emotion of compassion, to open your heart to yourself and acknowledge your suffering, acknowledge that you're struggling, acknowledge that sometimes you face problems that are difficult. Knowing that this is not your fault, that life has frustrations, life has difficulties. Those bumps are unavoidable. And then from that place of an open heart, can you send that compassion to others? Starting maybe with the others who have been there for you and supported you, the people that you're grateful for, feeling compassionate for whatever they're dealing with in their lives, and maybe even extending that compassion out beyond people you know to neutral people, and even people who have hurt you. It helps our own joy when we can see that we're all alike. We're all trying to do the best we can in life. And then finally, the last pillar of happiness is generosity. If you'd like, again, join me in placing your hands over your heart, feeling that sense of your own compassionate, generous, open heart. feel the generosity of the ways you give to others, the ways that you give of your time, of your talents. And maybe note, how has this particular problem, this particular issue that you've been facing allowed you to give more? Prompted you to be there for others even in the face of your own pain and suffering? And can you take that sense of generosity in your heart and radiate it out? Wish a sense of goodwill, an ability to share and be generous to everyone, to all beings everywhere. So as we come to the end of this meditation, remember that those 8 pillars of joy, those are all fundamental, those are all important as part of having a joyful life, of finding joy even in the midst of suffering and problems. And yet, if there are 1 or 2 that right now speak the most to you, definitely stay with those 1 or 2 and spend some time meditating, thinking, working around those issues. If there are 1 or 2 that are more challenging for you, maybe spending a little time meditating, working with those. For more on these joy practices, I do highly recommend the Book of Joy. And again, I will link to that down below. Thank you so much for spending these short period with me. I wish you joy in the rest of your day.